My name is Ashley, 35 years old, and I never expected a holiday dinner to change everything between my sister and me. After years of Megan's cold shoulder, I finally accepted her reluctant invitation, hoping for reconciliation. The moment I walked in, Megan rolled her eyes, typical. But then her mother-in-law Barbara froze, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost, and whispered, "That's her?" In that instant, I realized this dinner would reveal secrets nobody was prepared to face. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if family drama stories resonate with you. Growing up, Megan and I were inseparable despite being 3 years apart. I was the older sister, always responsible and studious, while Megan was the social butterfly who could charm anyone with her smile. Our bedroom walls were covered with photos of us building sandcastles at Virginia Beach, riding bikes down our neighborhood streets, and making silly faces at family picnics. We shared clothes, secrets, and dreams, despite our different personalities. I still remember how Megan would crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, and I'd tell her stories until she fell asleep. When she started middle school, I helped her navigate the social complexities that came so naturally to her but still made her nervous at first. We were different, but complementary. I planned, she improvised. I analyzed, she felt. I worked hard, she made everything look effortless. Everything changed when our parents announced their divorce. I was 15, Megan just 12. The news hit our family like a wrecking ball, destroying the foundation we'd built our lives upon. Dad moved out immediately, leaving Mom devastated and barely functional. Our reactions couldn't have been more different. I became even more responsible, while Megan spiraled. With Mom working longer hours to support us and drowning her sorrows in wine each evening, I stepped into the role of substitute parent. I made sure Megan did her homework, ate proper meals, and got to school on time. I covered for Mom when she couldn't attend Megan's school events, sitting proudly in the audience at her choir performances and track meets. At first, Megan seemed grateful for my support, but as months passed, I noticed her growing resentment. "Stop treating me like a baby," she'd snap when I reminded her about homework. "You're not, Mom," became her favorite phrase. Meanwhile, I sacrificed my own social life to keep our household running. My friends stopped calling eventually, tired of my constant cancellations. By the time I left for college, the distance between us had grown into a chasm. I chose State University just an hour away so I could come home weekends to check on them. Megan, now 15, had found a new rebellious identity. Her grades plummeted. She started hanging with a crowd that worried me, and Mom seemed oblivious to the transformation. The breaking point came on Megan's 18th birthday. I'd driven home to surprise her with a special dinner and the concert tickets she'd been coveting. Instead, I found our house transformed into party central, dozens of teenagers, alcohol flowing freely, and Megan dancing on our coffee table. Mom was conveniently staying at a friend's for the weekend. The argument that followed was nuclear. I shut down the party and sent everyone home, including a senior boy I found with Megan in our parents' bedroom. She screamed that I'd ruined her life, that I was jealous of her freedom, that I was a control freak who couldn't stand seeing people enjoy themselves. "You think you're so perfect," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. Always the responsible one, the smart one, the one who never makes mistakes. "I hate living in your shadow." Her words stung because they revealed a perspective I'd never considered. Had my efforts to protect her actually hurt her? After that night, our relationship existed mostly through obligatory birthday calls and tense holiday gatherings. I focused on building my career as a physical therapist, finding fulfillment in helping patients recover from injuries and surgeries. My specialty became trauma rehabilitation, helping people rebuild their lives after accidents. The irony wasn't lost on me that I could heal strangers, but not the relationship with my own sister. Meanwhile, Megan finished college, surprisingly, given her high school rebellion, and landed a marketing job at a prestigious firm. She met Ryan at a work conference, and their relationship progressed rapidly. When she called to announce their engagement, I felt a flicker of hope that perhaps this new chapter might heal our rift. That hope disintegrated when an emergency at work prevented me from attending their wedding. One of my long-term patients had attempted suicide, and I spent the weekend helping coordinate his care and supporting his family. When I called Megan to explain, her response was ice cold. Of course, something more important came up. It always does. No explanation, no second chance. Just another failure added to her mental scorecard against me. For 5 years following her wedding, our interaction consisted of brief, superficial conversations at family functions and generic birthday texts. I made numerous attempts to bridge the gap, sending thoughtful gifts, suggesting sister weekends, even writing a heartfelt letter explaining my absence from her wedding. Each attempt was met with polite disinterest or outright rejection. So when Megan's text arrived inviting me to her holiday dinner party, I stared at my phone in disbelief. Having people over for dinner on Saturday. Mom said I should invite you. 6 p.m. Not exactly warm, but it was the first invitation in years. After deliberating for days, I accepted. Perhaps time had softened her heart, or maybe this was an olive branch I'd been waiting for. I never imagined that this reluctant dinner invitation would unravel secrets that had been hidden for years, or that Megan's mother-in-law would be the catalyst for a long-overdue reckoning between sisters. I spent 3 hours getting ready for Megan's dinner party, changing outfits 6 times and redoing my makeup twice. My final choice. A forest green sweater dress that Mom once said brought out my eyes, felt appropriately festive without trying too hard. I wanted to look put together, but not like I was competing with Megan, knowing how sensitive she could be about comparisons. The gift I'd chosen took even longer to prepare. For weeks, I'd been scanning old family photos and assembling them into a custom album. There was Megan blowing out candles on her 6th birthday, us building a snowman in matching red mittens, and a candid shot of us laughing at Dad's terrible jokes during our last family vacation before the divorce. I hoped these tangible memories might remind her of the bond we once shared. As I drove to her neighborhood across town, my stomach twisted with anxiety. The GPS directed me to an upscale subdivision with manicured lawns and luxury vehicles in circular driveways. Megan's house. A 2-story colonial with perfect symmetry and tasteful holiday decorations, looked like something from a magazine spread. Ryan's investment banking career was clearly paying dividends. I sat in my 10-year-old sedan for several minutes, gathering courage and rehearsing casual conversation starters. Through the large bay window, I could see people moving about, crystal glasses catching the light from an elaborate chandelier. I felt like an imposter approaching this perfect tableau. With the photo album tucked under my arm, I finally approached the front door and rang the bell. Megan answered, wearing a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her hair styled in an elegant updo I could never manage with my unruly curls. Her eyes swept over me, registering my presence with a subtle roll. "You're here," she said flatly, stepping aside to let me in. No hug, no warm welcome, just acknowledgement of my existence. "Thanks for inviting me," I replied, handing her the carefully wrapped album. "Just a little something I put together." She set it on a console table, without opening it. "You can put your coat in the guest room upstairs. Everyone's having drinks in the living room." The house interior was even more impressive. Open concept with designer furniture, abstract art, and not a single personal photo visible. It felt like a model home, beautiful but impersonal, lacking the warmth of childhood memories or comfortable imperfections. In the living room, Ryan spotted me and approached with a genuine smile. Unlike my sister, he seemed actually pleased to see me. "Ashley, glad you could make it." His handshake was warm and firm. "Let me introduce you to my parents. They're visiting from Chicago for the holidays." He led me to an elegant older couple by the fireplace. "Mom, Dad, this is Ashley, Megan's sister." Barbara and George, Ryan's father, introduced them, shaking my hand vigorously. "We've heard so little about you. It's nice to finally meet." His comment stung, confirmation that Megan rarely acknowledged my existence to her in-laws, but I forced a smile. "Likewise. Ryan speaks very highly of you both." "Barbara, A slim woman in her 60s with perfectly styled silver hair had been smiling politely as we exchanged pleasantries. But as she really looked at me, her expression transformed. Her champagne glass froze midway to her lips, her eyes widened, and all color drained from her face. "That's her," she whispered, staring at me with an intensity that made me unconsciously step back. The room didn't exactly fall silent, but the ambient conversation definitely dimmed as people noticed the strange interaction. I stood paralyzed, unsure what I'd done to provoke such a reaction. Had Megan told them horrible stories about me? Was my outfit inappropriate? Did I have lipstick on my teeth? Megan appeared instantly at my side, her smile tight. "Mom, dinner's almost ready. Can you help me check on the roast?" Barbara seemed reluctant to break her gaze. "But this is, Mom, the roast." Ryan's voice held a warning tone I couldn't interpret. As Barbara allowed herself to be led to the kitchen, confused glances bounced between remaining guests. George cleared his throat uncomfortably and engaged another couple in forced conversation about the holiday traffic. Ryan touched my elbow gently. "Can I get you a drink, Ashley? Wine? Cocktail?" "White wine would be great," I managed, my voice shakier than intended. "What was that about?" Ryan's expression was unreadable. "Don't worry about it. Mom can be dramatic sometimes." But his eyes didn't meet mine, and he escaped to the bar cart before I could press further. When dinner was announced, I discovered I'd been seated at the far end of the table, separated from Megan, Ryan, and his parents by several other guests. Whether deliberate or coincidental, the arrangement made it impossible to observe Barbara's continued strange behavior or get any explanation for her reaction. My dinner companions, a colleague of Ryan's and his wife, were pleasant enough, discussing safe topics like the unseasonably warm weather and the best holiday shopping venues. But throughout the meal, I caught Barbara staring at me whenever she thought I wasn't looking. Each time our eyes met, she would quickly look away, whispering something to George beside her. Megan worked the table like a professional hostess, refilling wine glasses and steering conversations, but notably avoided my end of the table. Her performance was flawless, laughing at the right moments, asking thoughtful questions, touching Ryan's shoulder affectionately. To anyone else, she appeared the picture of contentment, but I recognized the tension in her shoulders, the slightly too high pitch of her laugh when Barbara tried to speak to me across the table. "So, Ashley," Barbara called during a lull in conversation, "what line of work are you in?" Before I could answer, Megan interrupted. "Ashley's a physical therapist." "Eliza, didn't you mention you were redecorating your sunroom? I've been dying to hear about your plans." The abrupt subject change wasn't subtle, and several guests noticed, including Barbara, whose lips pressed into a thin line. Throughout the meal, she made 3 more attempts to engage me directly, each time thwarted by Megan's interventions. I felt like I was watching a tennis match where I didn't know the rules. What was Barbara trying to discover? Why was Megan so determined to prevent our interaction? The mystery of Barbara's initial shock remained unsolved as we moved from main course to dessert, but one thing was clear. There was more happening beneath the surface of this dinner party than anyone was acknowledging. Dessert brought creme brulee served in individual ramekins, each with a perfectly caramelized top that cracked satisfyingly under our spoons. The conversation had settled into the comfortable rhythm of people who had eaten and drunk well, touching on holiday plans and New Year's resolutions. "We're thinking Aspen this year," Megan announced, slipping her hand into Ryan's. "Last year's Vail trip was wonderful, but we're ready for a change." "The Hawkins invited us to their chalet," Ryan added. "Private chef included." I concentrated on my dessert, acutely aware of the contrast between their luxury ski vacation and my planned staycation with Netflix and my elderly cat. Not that I resented their success. I loved my work and modest lifestyle, but Megan's pointed glances my way suggested she was scoring mental points with each exclusive detail. "What about you, Ashley?" George asked kindly. "Any special holiday plans?" "I volunteer at a rehabilitation center on Christmas Day," I replied. "Many of our patients don't have family nearby, so we organize a special lunch and activities." Barbara's face lit up. That's wonderful. Speaking of rehabilitation, did I mention the amazing progress I've made since the accident? My doctor says it's nothing short of miraculous given the initial prognosis. The word accident cut through the ambient chatter like a knife. Megan's spoon clattered against a ramekin, and Ryan straightened in his chair. Mom, he warned quietly. What accident? Asked one of the guests, a woman whose name I'd forgotten. Oh, it was about 3 years ago, Barbara began, her eyes finding mine across the table. Who needs coffee? Megan stood abruptly. I have regular and decaf. Ashley, would you mind helping me in the kitchen? Her tone made it clear this wasn't a request. I followed her through the swinging door into her gleaming chef's kitchen, where she immediately busied herself with the coffee maker, her back to me. What is going on, Megan? I asked, keeping my voice low. Why does your mother-in-law keep looking at me like that? And what accident is she talking about? It's nothing, she snapped, measuring coffee with sharp, angry movements. Barbara had a car accident a few years ago. She's fine now, just loves the attention of telling the story. Something about her explanation fell off. But what does that have to do with me? The way she reacted when she saw me. Not everything is about you, Ashley. Megan slammed the coffee carafe down. Can you just once not make yourself the center of attention? Her accusation was so unfair, I almost laughed. Are you serious? I've barely spoken all evening. You've seated me as far away from you as possible, interrupted every time your mother-in-law tries to talk to me, and I'm making myself the center of attention? A flash of something, guilt? Fear? Crossed Megan's face before her expression hardened again. Just take these cream and sugar bowls out. I'll bring the coffee. I grabbed the items and pushed through the door, my mind racing. As I set the cream and sugar on the dining table, Barbara touched my arm. Ashley, could you show me where the powder room is?
I'm afraid we've forgotten.
Before Megan could intervene, Barbara had linked her arm through mine and was steering me toward the hallway. As soon as we were out of earshot, she stopped and turned to face me. It is you, she said softly, her eyes filling with tears. I wasn't completely sure at first, but now I am. You're the woman who saved my life.
I stared at her, confused.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. 3 years ago. The accident on Riverside Drive. My car went off the road during that terrible rainstorm. You stopped and pulled me out before the car caught fire. You kept me conscious until the ambulance came, kept my neck stabilized. The memory rushed back with startling clarity. A stormy night, hydroplaning on a curve, headlights illuminating a sedan half-submerged in a drainage ditch. The unconscious woman behind the wheel, the smell of gasoline, the fear that the car might explode at any moment. I'd been driving home from a late shift at the rehabilitation center, my emergency medical training kicking in automatically. That was you, I whispered, studying her face. The woman I'd helped had been bleeding from a head wound, features barely visible in the darkness and rain. I had no idea. The paramedics took over, and I never found out what happened to you. You disappeared before I could thank you. The police report mentioned an unidentified Good Samaritan. Barbara's grip on my hands tightened. The doctors said if you hadn't stabilized my neck and spine correctly, I could have been paralyzed. You knew exactly what to do. My training as a physical therapist, I explained, still processing this incredible coincidence. But how did you recognize me after all this time? And in the dark? Your voice, she said simply. When you were keeping me calm, waiting for the ambulance, you had such a soothing voice. You kept saying, stay with me, you're going to be okay. I never forgot it. And then your face, even through the haze, I remember your eyes. Kind eyes. A terrible realization dawned on me. Does Megan know about this? That I was the one who helped you. Barbara's expression confirmed my suspicion before she spoke.
Yes.
When Ryan showed me a photo of his fiancée's family about 2 years ago, I recognized you immediately. I was so excited to learn my son was marrying the sister of the woman who saved my life. I told them both the story. Megan confirmed it was you based on the date and location. She said you'd mentioned stopping at an accident that night. I did remember telling Megan about the incident during one of our rare phone conversations. She'd seemed disinterested at the time, changing the subject quickly. But she never told me it was you, I said, the hurt blooming fresh. She never mentioned anything about Ryan's mother being the woman I helped. I've been asking to meet you for 2 years, Barbara said, her expression troubled. Megan always had reasons why it wasn't possible. Family complications, she said. I assumed you two were estranged for some serious reason. Ryan seemed uncomfortable whenever I brought it up, so eventually I stopped asking. The coffee forgotten, Barbara led me to a small sitting room off the main hallway and closed the door. There, she told me about her recovery journey, 3 surgeries, months of physical therapy, learning to walk again. The accident had changed her perspective on life, she explained. She'd retired from her executive position to focus on family and volunteer work. I owe my recovery to you, she insisted. Not just for the immediate help, but because you inspired me during rehabilitation. Whenever I wanted to give up, my physical therapist would say, "Remember the woman who saved you knew you could make it." You became my motivation. As Barbara spoke, pieces clicked into place. Megan's reluctance to have me meet Ryan's family, her anxiety throughout dinner, her desperate attempts to keep Barbara from talking to me. My sister had deliberately hidden the connection between us, preventing the woman whose life I'd saved from even thanking me. The realization was a knife twist of betrayal. Whatever issues existed between Megan and me, how could she deny this basic human connection? What kind of resentment would drive her to hide something so significant? I'm sorry, I said finally, but I need to understand why Megan kept this from me. It doesn't make sense. Barbara's expression softened with sympathy. Family dynamics are complicated, dear. I have a sister too. We didn't speak for 12 years over a perceived slight at my wedding. She patted my hand. Whatever's between you and Megan, I hope you can resolve it. Life's too short for family estrangement. My accident taught me that. When we returned to the dining room, Megan's sharp gaze registered our extended absence and the new understanding between us. The remainder of dessert passed in strained conversation, with Barbara now openly engaging me while Megan grew increasingly agitated. The connection that should have brought joy instead created a palpable tension that even the other guests couldn't miss. As the evening wound down, I knew a confrontation was inevitable. The question wasn't if, but when and how explosive it would be. After dessert, guests migrated back to the living room for after-dinner drinks. I found myself observing the interactions with new awareness, particularly the family dynamics between Ryan, his parents, and Megan. My sister performed flawless hostess duties, but her smiles never reached her eyes when Barbara engaged me in conversation. Ashley was just telling me about her work in trauma rehabilitation, Barbara announced to the small group around us. It's fascinating how she helps people rebuild their lives after serious injuries. Very similar to your recovery process, Mom, Ryan added, seemingly unaware of the undercurrents. George joined in enthusiastically. Barbara's accident changed our whole family, made us reprioritize everything. He turned to the other guests. She was trapped in her car after a rainstorm, going into shock. Would have died if a good Samaritan hadn't stopped to help. I noticed Megan's knuckles widening around her wine glass. The doctors said the way this person stabilized her neck prevented certain paralysis, George continued. We tried to find them afterward to express our gratitude, but they'd left before giving their name to paramedics. How fortunate you were, one guest commented to Barbara. More than you know, Barbara replied, her gaze finding mine across the room. My guardian angel turned out to be closer than I realized. The room quieted as guests sensed something significant unfolding. Ashley was that person, Barbara stated clearly. She saved my life that night, used her medical training to keep me stable until help arrived. And, by some miracle, she turned out to be my daughter-in-law's sister. Astonished murmurs filled the room as guests turned to stare at me with newfound appreciation. Ryan looked uncomfortable but managed a smile. What are the odds, right? He said weakly. Megan set her glass down with excessive force. It's getting late. We should probably start saying goodnight to everyone. But this is extraordinary, objected a woman in a red dress. Why haven't you shared this amazing connection before? It's like something from a movie. The question hung in the air like a live grenade. Every eye shifted between Megan and me. Yes, Megan, I said quietly. Why haven't you mentioned this connection before? Barbara tells me she's been asking to meet me for 2 years. The silence that followed was deafening. Megan's face flushed, then paled. This isn't the time or place, she hissed. When would be a good time? I countered, years of hurt bubbling to the surface. You've had 2 years to tell me that the woman whose life I saved is your mother-in-law. 2 years of deliberately keeping us apart. Several guests shifted uncomfortably, sensing they were witnessing something private. Ryan stepped forward, placing a hand on Megan's shoulder. Maybe we should discuss this later, when... No, Megan interrupted, shrugging off his touch. Her eyes blazed with an emotion I couldn't quite identify. You want to do this now?
Fine.
Let's do it now. She turned to face the room, voice brittle with forced lightness. Yes, my perfect sister Ashley saved Barbara's life. Heroic Ashley, always in the right place at the right time, always doing the right thing. Another amazing accomplishment to add to her Halo collection. Gasps rippled through the room. Barbara's hand flew to her mouth. Megan. Ryan's voice held shock and warning. But Megan was past restraint, words pouring out like poison. Do you have any idea what it's like growing up with St. Ashley? The responsible one, the smart one, the one who never makes mistakes? The one who stepped in after Dad left and became a mini-mom, making me feel even more abandoned. She turned to me, tears now streaming down her face. You've been the measuring stick for my entire life. Why can't you be more like your sister? Ashley would never do that. Look how Ashley handles responsibility. Every achievement, every milestone, nothing was ever enough because you'd already done it better. Her pain hit me like a physical blow. I'd had no idea she felt this way, that my attempts to help and protect had only made her feel inadequate. And then, she continued, voice breaking, then you saved my mother-in-law's life? Do you know what it was like hearing Barbara go on and on about her anonymous savior, this amazing woman with medical knowledge and quick thinking? And then seeing her face when she realized it was you? Another thing you did perfectly that I could never measure up to. That's why you kept us apart. I asked, stunned by the revelation. Because you were jealous that I helped Barbara? Jealous. Megan laughed bitterly. Try humiliated. My husband's mother owes her life to my sister. The sister I've been complaining about and minimizing to my in-laws for years. The sister who couldn't even bother to attend my wedding but apparently has time to be a roadside hero. The unfairness of her last accusation broke something in me. I missed your wedding because a patient attempted suicide. I was at the hospital for 48 hours straight. I called you, I explained, I apologized, but you never gave me a chance. Because it's always something with you, she shouted. Always some noble reason why you can't be there for me, but can be there for everyone else. You'll save a stranger on the side of the road, but when it comes to your sister's wedding, sorry, emergency at work. Tears filled my eyes. That's not fair, and you know it. I've been trying to reconnect with you for years. You're the one who shut me out. Because it hurts too much. Her voice cracked on the last word. It hurts to be around you, to feel like I'm never enough, to watch everyone admire you while I'm just me. So yes, I kept you and Barbara apart. I couldn't bear watching her look at you the way she's looking at you right now, like you're some kind of angel on earth. The room had gone completely silent. Other guests stared at their drinks or the floor, mortified to be witnessing such a raw family conflict. Barbara had tears streaming down her face, and Ryan looked torn between anger and concern. Megan, he said gently, this isn't Ashley's fault. She had no idea about any of this. Take her side, Megan snapped. Everyone always does. The accusation hung in the air, unfair and painful. I felt tears spilling down my cheeks, unable to contain them any longer. I never knew you felt this way, I said softly. All these years, I thought I was helping you. I was trying to protect you after Dad left, trying to make things easier for Mom. I didn't realize I was making you feel worse. Well, Now you know, she replied, wiping angrily at her tears. The perfect sister isn't so perfect after all. I gathered my purse, emotions overwhelming me. I should go. Thank you for dinner. No one tried to stop me as I moved toward the door. As I reached for my coat in the hall closet, I heard Barbara say firmly, Megan, that was unfair, and you know it. Ryan's voice joined hers. Babe, you've got this all wrong. Ashley isn't your competition. She's your sister. I couldn't bear to hear more. I slipped out the front door into the cold night air, tears blurring my vision as I fumbled for my car keys. The perfect gathering in the perfect house had shattered into perfect chaos, revealing the imperfect, festering wounds beneath our sibling relationship. In my car, hands shaking on the steering wheel, I finally allowed myself to break down completely. The sister I'd tried so hard to protect saw me as her tormentor. The distance between us wasn't just years of misunderstandings, it was a fundamental difference in how we experienced our shared past. And I had no idea how to bridge that gap, or if it could be bridged at all. Back home, I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto my couch, emotionally drained. My elderly cat, Jasper, immediately claimed my lap, his rumbling purr a comforting contrast to the evening's chaos. The apartment felt especially quiet after the explosive confrontation at Megan's house. I replayed the evening in my mind, examining memories from my childhood through the lens of Megan's accusations. Had I really been as perfect and condescending as she described? I remembered late nights helping her with homework, defending her against neighborhood bullies, covering for her mistakes with our parents, actions I'd always seen as protective love, not superiority. But maybe my perspective wasn't the only valid one. Maybe in trying to shield her from hardship, I'd inadvertently made her feel inadequate. The thought was painful to consider. I pulled out old photo albums, the real ones, not the digitized collection I'd gifted Megan. There we were, gap-toothed and grinning in matching Easter dresses. Megan at 8, proudly displaying the science fair ribbon I'd helped her earn. Me at 16, arm around 13-year-old Megan at the beach the summer after Dad left. In photo after photo, I noticed something I'd never seen before. The way Megan looked at me, a mixture of admiration and uncertainty. Not the resentment she described, but perhaps the seeds of it. The burden of comparison written in her expression, even then. Around midnight, my phone rang. Expecting Mom calling to hear about the dinner, I was surprised to see Ryan's name on the screen. Ashley? Sorry to call so late. His voice sounded tired. Are you okay? I've been better, I admitted. How's Megan? Upset. Embarrassed. Conflicted. He sighed heavily. Look, I'm calling to apologize for tonight. What Megan said, it wasn't right. But it was honest, I replied. Sometimes honesty isn't pretty. There's honesty and there's perspective, Ryan countered. And Megan's perspective on your relationship is complicated. I'm not excusing her behavior, but there's context you should know. For the next hour, Ryan shared insights from his 5 years with my sister. How she'd panic before family gatherings, afraid of being compared unfavorably to me. How she'd obsess over hosting perfect dinner parties because Ashley would notice every flaw. How she'd refuse to invite me to their housewarming because the house wasn't good enough yet. She's in therapy, he revealed. Has been for 2 years. A lot of it centers around her self-worth issues and feeling like she's living in your shadow. I had no idea, I whispered, heartbreaking for my sister's hidden pain. The Barbara situation made everything worse, Ryan continued. When Mom realized you were the person who saved her, she was ecstatic. Kept saying it was fate that connected our families. Megan, she shut down. Later told me it felt like the universe was playing a cruel joke, giving you another way to outshine her, this time in her marriage. That's not how I see it at all, I protested. I know that, and rationally Megan knows it too. But emotions aren't rational.
He paused.
She's not a bad person, Ashley. She's just been fighting demons you didn't know existed. What do I do now? I asked, feeling lost. After tonight, I'm not sure there's a way forward. Don't give up on her, Ryan urged.
Please.
Underneath all that anger is the little sister who still loves you, who still has that photo of you two at the state fair by her bedside, though she hides it when anyone visits. The mention of that particular photo, taken the summer before Dad left, our last truly happy time as a family, brought fresh tears. I won't give up, I promised. But I'm not sure she wants me to try. Give her time, Ryan advised, and maybe a little space to process. But not too much space. He chuckled sadly. You Sawyer women are experts at letting space become permanent distance. After we hung up, I felt both drained and oddly hopeful. At least the truth was finally out. Ugly and painful, but real. We couldn't heal wounds we pretended didn't exist. The next morning, a gentle knock at my door surprised me. Opening it revealed Barbara standing in my hallway, clutching her handbag nervously. I hope you don't mind, she said. Ryan gave me your address. May I come in? Over coffee at my small kitchen table, Barbara shared her own perspective on the previous night's revelations. I suspected something was wrong when Megan kept avoiding my requests to meet you. But I never imagined the depth of her feelings. Neither did I admitted. You know, Barbara said thoughtfully, this reminds me of my relationship with my own sister, Patricia. We didn't speak for 12 years. 12 years, I echoed, horrified at the thought of such prolonged estrangement. Barbara nodded. Over a perceived slight at my wedding. She thought I deliberately gave her an unflattering bridesmaid dress because I was jealous of her figure. She laughed softly. Looking back, it seems so trivial, but at the time, it represented years of competition and misunderstanding. How did you reconcile? I asked, hungry for a roadmap to fixing my own relationship. Cancer, Barbara replied simply. My diagnosis 10 years ago. Nothing clarifies priorities like mortality. She reached across the table to pat my hand. But you shouldn't need such a dramatic catalyst. The accident gave me a second chance at many relationships. Perhaps it can do the same for you and Megan. We talked for hours. Barbara shared wisdom from her own sibling reconciliation, offering insights into how perceived slights can fester into deep wounds when left unaddressed. She also provided a different perspective on Megan, the devoted daughter-in-law who organized Barbara's medical appointments during recovery, who researched spinal injury treatments late into the night, who cried with relief when Barbara took her first unassisted steps after the accident. She has a big heart, Barbara insisted. Just one with some bruised places where you're concerned. Before leaving, Barbara extended an unexpected invitation. We're having a small family gathering at our house next weekend. Just Ryan, Megan, George, and me. Would you come? It might be easier neutral territory for you two to start talking. My instinct was to refuse, to protect myself from another painful confrontation. But Barbara's gentle persistence wore down my resistance. Just think about it, she said. Sometimes the hardest steps are the most necessary ones. After she left, I spent the week reflecting on my relationship with Megan. I realized I'd been so focused on being the responsible older sister that I'd missed how my actions affected her. I'd seen myself as her protector, never considering I might also be her problem. I thought about how I'd respond if our situations were reversed, if I'd grown up feeling constantly measured against an idealized sibling standard. The insight wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. For the first time, I could see our relationship from Megan's perspective, and it changed everything. By Friday, I'd made my decision. I texted Barbara accepting her invitation, then spent another sleepless night wondering if I was making a terrible mistake or taking the first step toward healing. The following Saturday, I approached the Reynolds suburban home with considerably more trepidation than I'd felt at Megan's dinner party. This time, I knew exactly what tensions awaited inside, but I had no script for navigating them. I dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, deliberately avoiding anything that could be interpreted as trying to impress. The small potted orchid I brought as a hostess gift seemed inadequate but appropriate, beautiful but requiring care to flourish, much like the relationship I hoped to rebuild. Barbara opened the door with a warm smile that eased some of my anxiety. You came, she said, enveloping me in a hug that felt surprisingly natural. I'm so glad. George greeted me with equal warmth in their cozy living room, where a fire crackled in the stone fireplace. Their home felt lived in and comfortable, filled with family photos and collected mementos, a stark contrast to Megan and Ryan's showroom-perfect house. Ryan emerged from the kitchen, offering a beer and a reassuring squeeze of my shoulder. Thanks for coming, he murmured. It means a lot. Megan was notably absent for the first 15 minutes, until Barbara called everyone to the kitchen. I found my sister arranging vegetables on a platter, her face carefully neutral when she saw me. Hi, I offered simply. Hi, she returned, focusing intently on perfectly aligning carrot sticks. Barbara, ever the strategist, immediately put us to work preparing dinner together. Megan, show Ashley how to make your famous herb butter for the bread. Ashley, you can help chop while Megan mixes. Forced proximity broke the ice slightly as we worked side by side. Mundane questions. Pass the time? Is this chopped fine enough? Created a rhythm of normal interaction. Neither of us mentioned the previous week's confrontation, but it hovered between us, an invisible barrier we carefully navigated around. Halfway through preparation, Barbara exclaimed, "Oh, I forgot to pick up dessert. George, would you and Ryan run to that bakery we love? The one across town." The transparent ploy to leave us alone with Barbara wasn't subtle, but effective. As soon as the men departed, Barbara engaged us in cooking tasks that required cooperation, Megan holding a bowl while I whisked, me steadying a pan while she stirred. You know, Barbara commented casually, this reminds me of cooking with my sister after our reconciliation. Awkward at first, but kitchens have a way of bringing people together. Neither Megan nor I responded directly, but I noticed my sister's tight shoulders relaxing slightly as Barbara shared funny stories about her own sibling relationship. When Barbara remembered urgent laundry that needed switching, leaving us momentarily alone, the silence was deafening. Your butter is really good, I finally offered. Mom's recipe, Megan replied, then added reluctantly, you were always better at the technical stuff. I remember you making those perfect Christmas cookies every year. But yours always tasted better, I countered. You have natural instincts in the kitchen. I just follow instructions. A ghost of a smile flickered across her face. Remember when we tried to make Dad's birthday cake the year Mom was sick? That lopsided chocolate monstrosity. With the candles that kept falling over? I laughed at the memory. He pretended it was the best cake he'd ever had. Because you threatened him in advance, Megan recalled, her smile growing more genuine. I overheard you telling him I'd worked really hard, and he'd better be enthusiastic or else. I'd forgotten that detail, how protective I'd been of Megan's feelings even then. You were so proud of that cake. We both were, she corrected softly. The moment of connection hung between us, fragile but real. Barbara returned, smile widening at our slightly more relaxed postures. After dinner, Barbara suggested we look through old photo albums while the men cleaned up. She pulled out pictures of Ryan's childhood, Barbara and George's wedding, family vacations, neutral territory that allowed conversation without pressure. Oh, Ashley would love this one, Barbara said at one point, showing a photo of Ryan at his college graduation. Megan, don't you have some childhood photos you could share? I'd love to see you two growing up. The request was another obvious attempt at fostering connection, but Megan surprised me by nodding. There's a box in the guest room closet, she told Barbara. Ryan brought it over last month when we were clearing space in our storage unit. The albums Barbara retrieved captured moments I'd almost forgotten. Megan and me building sandcastles, riding bikes with streamers on the handlebars, dressed in matching holiday outfits we'd protested but secretly loved. You were adorable, Barbara commented, pointing to a photo of 8-year-old Megan missing her front teeth. Look at that smile. I was so self-conscious about those missing teeth, Megan admitted. I wouldn't smile at school for weeks. Until I convinced you they made you look like a hockey player, I recalled. You went from hiding your smile to checking daily if any more teeth were loose. We continued through the albums, each photo unlocking shared memories that temporarily suspended the tension between us. When Barbara and George conveniently remembered they needed to video call their other son, leaving us alone in the sunroom, the silence felt less oppressive than before. "This was a setup, wasn't it?" Megan finally said, gesturing toward the house. "Barbara orchestrating this whole reconciliation attempt." "Pretty much," I admitted. "She's surprisingly strategic." Megan nodded, picking at a loose thread on the couch cushion. "She means well." "She does." I hesitated, then added, "She cares about you a lot, you know. Talks about what a support you were during her recovery." Megan's eyes remained fixed on the cushion. I was terrified we'd lose her. The doctors initially weren't sure if she'd walk again. Ryan was a mess. "You stepped up. Took care of everyone. The way you always did for me and Mom," she said quietly. The parallel hung between us, an opening I decided to brave. "Megan, about what you said at the dinner party. I never realized you felt that way about our relationship. About me." She finally looked up, eyes guarded but not hostile. "How could you know? I never told you." "But I should have seen it," I insisted. "I was so focused on protecting you after Dad left that I never considered how my actions might have made you feel inadequate somehow. That was never my intention." "I know that. Rationally, I know that." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "But feelings aren't rational. Every time you stepped in to fix something, every time you succeeded where I struggled, it reinforced this idea that I wasn't enough on my own." "You are enough," I said firmly. "You've always been enough. I'm so sorry if I ever made you feel otherwise." Tears welled in her eyes. "And I'm sorry for keeping you and Barbara apart. That was petty and small." When she realized you were her rescuer, it felt like one more way I couldn't measure up. One more exceptional thing about you that I could never match. "It wasn't a competition," I said gently. "Everything felt like a competition to me," she admitted. "But that's my issue, not yours." We weren't completely healed. Years of misunderstanding couldn't be resolved in one conversation, but it felt like the first honest exchange we'd had in decades. When Barbara and George returned, they found us still talking, the photo albums open between us, painful truths being cautiously examined in the afternoon light. As the gathering wound down, Megan surprised me with a tentative suggestion. "There's a new cafe near my office. Maybe we could meet for lunch sometime next week? Just us." The invitation represented more than a meal. It was an open door after years of closed ones. "I'd like that," I replied, heart lightening at the possibility of reconnection. When I left, Barbara hugged me tightly. "Baby steps," she whispered. "Just keep taking baby steps toward each other." Ryan walked me to my car, his relief evident. "Thank you for trying," he said simply. "She needs her sister, even if she doesn't always know how to show it." Driving home, I felt cautiously optimistic. The chasm between Megan and me hadn't been bridged completely, but we'd at least acknowledged its existence and begun building from both sides. For the first time in years, I believed reconciliation might actually be possible. 1 month later, I sat at a corner table in Rosemary Cafe, nervously checking my watch every few minutes. Megan and I had met for lunch 3 times since the gathering at Barbara and George's house, each meeting progressively less awkward than the last. Today's location, a childhood favorite diner our parents had taken us to for special occasions, had been Megan's suggestion, a choice that felt symbolically significant. When she arrived, cheeks flushed from the February cold, I noticed something different about her. A lightness, perhaps, or a new openness in her expression. "Sorry I'm late," she said, unwinding her scarf. "Client meeting ran over." "No problem. I ordered your favorite appetizer, the spinach artichoke dip." It was a peace offering of sorts, a demonstration that I remembered the small details of her preferences. She smiled, seeming touched by the gesture. "Perfect. And they still have the best mozzarella sticks in town." We fell into easier conversation than during our previous meetings, discussing work projects and a movie we'd both recently seen. The familiar surroundings helped, I think, sitting in a booth where we'd once argued over who got the last French fry, where Dad had taught us to make paper airplanes from straw wrappers, where Mom had announced she'd finally saved enough for our beach vacation. Remember when you convinced me that chocolate milk came from brown cows? Megan laughed, dipping a breadstick into the spinach dip. I believed that until second grade. And you got revenge by telling me the tooth fairy wouldn't come unless I did your chores, I countered. I cleaned your room for a week. These shared memories felt like building blocks, reconstructing a foundation that had crumbled over years of misunderstanding. After our entrees arrived, Megan set down her fork and looked at me seriously. I've been thinking a lot about what you said at Barbara and George's, about not realizing how your actions affected me growing up. I nodded, giving her space to continue. My therapist and I have been working through this. She helped me see that while my feelings were valid, my interpretation wasn't always accurate. Megan twisted her napkin nervously. I saw your achievements as a judgment on my shortcomings, but that was never your intention. Never, I confirmed softly. I know that now. She hesitated. I also need to acknowledge something I've never told you. When Dad left and you stepped up to help Mom with everything, including me, part of me was relieved. Grateful, even. You gave me space to just be a kid when everything was falling apart. Her admission surprised me. You never seemed grateful at the time. Because gratitude and resentment got all tangled up together, she explained. I needed you, but I hated needing you. I wanted your approval, but resented wanting it. She smiled ruefully. Like I said, my therapist is earning her fee. I have some apologies to make too, I admitted. I think I got so comfortable in the caretaker role that I never adjusted as you grew up. I kept trying to fix and protect when maybe you just needed me to listen and support. That's exactly it, she agreed, eyes lighting with recognition. Even last year when I mentioned problems with my marketing team, you immediately started offering solutions. Sometimes I just want to vent without being fixed. The conversation continued, deeper and more honest than any we'd had in years. I shared my professional challenges, a patient who wasn't responding to treatment, funding cuts at the rehabilitation center. Megan offered empathy without solutions, demonstrating she'd heard my earlier point. Then, as our desserts arrived, Megan set down her spoon and took a deep breath. There's something else I want to tell you. Something important. She fidgeted with her wedding ring. You're the first person I'm telling outside of Ryan. What is it? I asked, concern mounting. I'm pregnant. Her face transformed with a mixture of joy and nervousness. 12 weeks yesterday. For a moment, I couldn't speak, overwhelmed by the news and its significance. Not just the pregnancy itself, but that she'd chosen to share it with me before anyone else. Megan, that's wonderful. I finally managed, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. How are you feeling? Terrified, excited, nauseous. She laughed. We've been trying for almost 2 years. I was starting to think it might not happen. You're going to be an amazing mother, I told her, meaning it completely. That's the thing, she said, voice suddenly vulnerable. I keep thinking about how I want to be as a parent, and I find myself thinking about you. How you always made me feel safe, even when everything was falling apart. How you checked for monsters under my bed and left the hall light on even though Dad complained about the electric bill. Tears pricked my eyes at these forgotten details, the small ways I'd tried to protect her that she'd actually noticed and remembered. I was thinking, she continued hesitantly, maybe you could help me through this? Be involved from the beginning? I know we're still rebuilding, but I could really use my big sister right now. Her request, so vulnerable and genuine, broke through the last barriers between us. We spent the next hour discussing her pregnancy, her fears about motherhood, and planning for the months ahead. By the time we left the restaurant, something fundamental had shifted in our relationship. The competition and resentment hadn't disappeared entirely, but they'd been acknowledged and were no longer dictating our interactions. 6 months later, I stood beside Barbara in Megan and Ryan's backyard, greeting guests for the baby shower we'd co-organized. The event represented more than just celebrating the impending arrival of my niece. It symbolized the transformation of our sibling relationship. The months since our lunch had included weekly phone calls, joint shopping trips for nursery furniture, and honest conversations about our past and future. When Megan asked me to be her daughter's godmother, I'd accepted through tears, recognizing the trust this role represented. "You two have come so far," Barbara commented, watching Megan laughing with friends across the lawn. "It's beautiful to witness." "We couldn't have done it without you," I told her sincerely. "Your intervention changed everything." Barbara smiled. "Sometimes we need someone outside the situation to help us see what's right in front of us. My accident taught me that life's too precious for estrangement. I'm just grateful it brought healing to both our families." Later, as guests departed and Megan opened the handmade baby blanket I'd spent months creating, she pulled me aside. "I never thought we'd be here," she admitted, one hand resting on her rounded belly. "After years of pushing you away, I was sure I'd ruined our relationship forever." "Family is surprisingly resilient," I replied. "Like that old oak tree in our childhood backyard. Bend but don't break, remember?" She nodded, eyes glistening. "I want my daughter to have what I almost threw away, a relationship with her aunt. Someone who'll teach her things I can't, who'll give her perspective I don't have, who'll love her in ways that complement how Ryan and I love her. I'll be there, I promised. For both of you." As the afternoon light filtered through the trees, casting golden patterns across the yard, I reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a reluctant dinner invitation and a shocking moment of recognition. Barbara's words from months ago echoed in my mind. Life's too short for family estrangement. The healing between Megan and me wasn't perfect or complete. We still had moments of tension, still navigated sensitive topics carefully. But we were actively choosing connection over distance, understanding over assumption, forgiveness over resentment. Each conversation built another plank in the bridge spanning the chasm between us. Sometimes the most profound healing begins with the most painful truths. Sometimes a single moment, a mother-in-law freezing in recognition, a sister's eyes rolling in dismissal, can set in motion a transformation neither person saw coming. And sometimes, the family we almost lose becomes the family we fight hardest to keep. If you've experienced similar family tensions or reconciliations, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. How did you bridge the gap with an estranged loved one? What unexpected catalysts helped heal your relationships? Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story touched your heart, and share it with someone who might need reminder that even the deepest family wounds can heal with time, truth, and willingness to try again. Thank you for listening to my journey, and may your own family relationships find healing where it's needed most.